Are you planning on playing your wildcard in game week 32 to set yourself up for the final 7 weeks of the season, probably bench boost in game week 33, and just improve your team after what's been quite a difficult few weeks for a lot of people, particularly with some players potentially like Liverpool attackers not performing too well? In this video, we're going to discuss everything you need. We're going to have a look at two different drafts for two different, slightly different strategies, but really we're all talking about should you be wildcarding in game week 32? And if so, how do you maximize the last few weeks of the season with the best possible draft? What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. And it's just so nice to be back thinking about FPL, planning FPL, and talking about chips. I just love this part of the season. It's the best part, planning, talking about strategies and everything. Now, we're not going to discuss chip strategy in too much detail in this video. This video is really if you have got to the point where you have decided that you need to wildcard in game week 32 or you've already activated it. If you're still undecided about what your chip strategy should be, I really would urge you to go and watch my chip strategy video from Sunday evening, which I recorded and published after all the FA Cup games were completed. So we knew what the doubles in 33 were going to look like. If you still need more information on what the best chip strategy is for your team, it is very team dependent this season. There's not a real one strategy fits all approach, with half the people looking at wildcard 32, with a lot of people looking to save it to wildcard 35 after the FA Cup results. I really would urge you, if you haven't watched it, to go and watch that chip strategy video first. Basically, the key differences that people are looking at, if you've got all of your chips, including triple captain, wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34, and triple captain 36 is the best way to maximize all of the chips that you've got in order to play both the triple captain and the bench boost in a double. The majority of people actually don't still have their triple captain available, which means you don't need a second double. So the free hit 33, wildcard 35, bench boost 36 starts to become popular, especially as you might not have a game week 32 wildcard team that looks that strong, and we'll look at that in this video. It also depends a little bit on how much your game week 32 team needs a wildcard. If you're looking at it and you really don't like it, then maybe the wildcard 32 strategy is still the best play for you to bench boost next week. Yes, maybe you sacrifice a few points this week, but you really maximize it next week. But if your team looks pretty strong in game week 32 and game week 34, then maybe the other strategy is for you. There is more information on the screen. It's all discussed in a lot more detail in yesterday's chip strategy guide video. If you haven't watched that, please go and do that, because that will really set the scene for what we're going to talk about. So the wildcard 32 strategy the majority of people are doing is in order to bench boost in 33 and free hit in 34. If you don't have the bench boost left, I don't really think it's worthwhile, because the main reason to wildcard this week in opposed to wildcard 33 or even saving it further down the line is to allow yourself to bench boost next week. One of the key things that we see when we look at a wildcard for 32 is it doesn't look particularly great, with all the teams who double in game week 33 not having particularly great fixtures in game week 32. We're looking at Bournemouth away at Arsenal. We're looking at Leeds away at Manchester United. We're looking at Manchester City taking on Chelsea. A lot of these fixtures are not particularly great. Now, Brighton go away to Burnley, which isn't bad, and Burnley are the other one, which we don't particularly want. So the only real reason to wildcard this week is if you want to set up a bench boost in 33, or maybe your team really, really needs it. So this is a draft that focuses in on that chip strategy. We've gone with Verbruggen and Darlow in goal. Of course, two goalkeepers who double in game week 33 as part of that bench boost. Verbruggen away to Burnley in goal starting this week. I know that there was a slight change in goal for Leeds in the cup game, but we are fully expecting Darlow to be the number one goalkeeper going forward in the league, as he has been for the past couple of months. Into defence. So on the bench, we've got triple Bournemouth. We've gone with Tavernier in midfield, but we've also gone with Senesi and James Hill. I like their long-term fixtures. I like their attacking threat. I like their DEFCON, and they're very nailed, and they're good, cheap options to help facilitate the rest of this bench boost squad. In terms of starting options, I've gone with Gabriel. Now, here's a slight doubt. To be honest, I do expect him to start against Sporting in the Champions League later this week, but keep an eye on that. If he's not available for that, he might be one that you need to take out there. I've gone with Van Heck away at Burnley, and I've gone with O'Reilly playing in midfield a lot of the time for Manchester City against Chelsea. Again, the issue slightly with wildcard this week is this draft has got 5 players in that Chelsea and Manchester City game. Luckily, only one of those is a defender, so you're basically just backing there to be a lot of goals in that match. Then into midfield, I've gone for Pascal Gross as the attacker from Brighton. You could also go for Danny Welbeck. I don't think you need a double up. If Antoine Stack is going to be available for Leeds, you could go for Stack and Welbeck in place of Gross and Calvert-Lewin. But I think one from each of those teams is probably the way that I would go. Semenyo is in, Bruno is in, and Tavernier is on the bench. And the final one is Bruno. A lot of people will disagree. Sorry, is Palmer. A lot of people will disagree with me including Cole Palmer in a game week 32 wildcard. However, you've got the money for it. If you're looking for an expensive player to spend the money on, and a lot of the midfielders are not particularly great who double in game week 33, with Enzo suspended for Chelsea in game week 32 after what he said about leaving the club over the international break, Palmer feels like the obvious one to go with. You can have him this week, have him for his double in game week 33, and then look to sell him later down the line. But even in game week 35, after the free hit, he does have Forest at home, so I probably would go with Palmer. I don't feel like there are a lot of other good options here that have a double next week, which is really what you're looking to target, although he does play City this week. Bruno is in. He doesn't double in 33, but he is a player that you will want long term. And then up front, it's João Pedro, Haaland, and it is Calvert-Lewin. You could go for Welbeck in here. Outside of that, they're not great forwards to pick from in terms of the double. Those are probably the two others that I'd have a look at in terms of considering. This team, if we start to have a look on FPL.team about how this team looks further down the line, once you have a look at it in bench boost game week 33, you've got two players without a double who will form part of the bench boost, who's Bruno away at Chelsea and Gabriel. Now, you could look to go against Gabriel in terms of this draft. If you really want to maximize the double, you could go for another Leeds defender, someone like a Rodon if he's going to be available. If not, someone like a Bijol or a Pascal Strout. There were lots of options, but I do think long term you will want some Arsenal in here. So I probably would keep Gabriel if he's available. And then, of course, Bruno. Now, when you look forward even until game week 35, it still doesn't look too bad. And then you can start to hopefully roll some transfers as best you can to build them up, to buy some Crystal Palace players into your team once game week 35 and 36 comes around, where Palace are expected to double against Manchester City, who you already have triple up from the original draft. So that is the main Wildcard 32 draft. It's probably what I would go with if I decide to do it. As I said in the video yesterday, I'm only about a 40, maybe 35% chance now that I look to actually wildcard this week. And we'll talk about that more in my transfer plans video out on Tuesday morning, slightly rearranging the videos. But if you are certain or considering a wildcard, this is probably what I look to go with. The big thing why people are starting to consider different strategies is this doesn't look great. Like, there's no real other way to put it. You've got 5 players from one game. You've got a triple up on Brighton, which doesn't feel particularly great. And then you've got Gabriel and you've got Bruno. You've got a triple up on Bournemouth going long into the season. I'm not sure is a perfect strategy, but if you're looking to wildcard this week, you are doing it to maximize the bench boost in 33. And this is probably the draft that gets you closest to it. Now, that draft is the one that's going to be closest and the best for the majority of people going on that strategy. But I did just want to present something slightly different and a slightly different chip strategy that we didn't talk about loads in yesterday's videos. I imagine very few of you go for it, but it's just something to consider. That is a wildcard 32, a free at 34, and delaying the bench boost to 36. The benefit to this is it allows you to pick up on more Arsenal players. It allows you to bench potentially Bruno Fernandes next week, and just generally carry more of those players that you might want longer term into the end of the season. You've already got a double up on Crystal Palace in this team to help you be set up better for that game week 36 double, and so not be forced to use lots of transfers further down the line. So, for example, you've got David Raya in here alongside Gabriel. You've got Richards and Sarr. So this team doesn't bench boost in 33 particularly well, but you will land in game week 35 and 36 better than with the first draft. You're just sacrificing 1 or 2 fixtures on the bench boost for a team that's better set up. So I know a lot of people will just look at that and go, right, we're going to wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34. But I would have a consideration for this strategy. And again, you can triple captain in 33 if you've still got that chip available. It just has a few more players that you might want long term. And again, if you look at game week 36 with some of the future planning, I think it sets your team up better for the long term than maybe that first draft did, but it doesn't focus as much on the bench boost and probably plays it in 36 compared to 33. Although you could still bench boost with like double Crystal Palace at home to West Ham in 33 if you wanted to, because it's still a good fixture. But I just wanted to present something slightly different because I know a lot of people on Wildcard might be thinking, is it the best strategy? The team this week doesn't look great. There is a slight different path that you could go down with this team that still covers off a lot of the bases and I think looks pretty good, and maybe it's not being spoken about enough. But that is a slightly shorter video. There's going to be a lot of content this week. If you're on Wildcard 32 for these different chip strategies, these are a couple of drafts I'd be having a look to go at. As we've spoken about, lots of stuff covered in yesterday's chip strategy videos about who blanks where, who doubles where, who might have an option as a triple captain later on. So if you need all of that information, we discussed it in that a lot more than we have done in this. This is more if you've got to that point to decide to wildcard. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. If you've got questions about different strategies or about my team, or if you're on a non-wildcard 32 strategy, the video on Tuesday and Wednesday will be more catered to answering those sorts of questions. So stay with me. We're going to cover everything we can this week. If you're enjoying the content being back, smash that like button. 2,000 is the aim. Subscribe if you are new. It is good to be back. FPL is almost here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back again very soon.